Good day, students! For today's video, we will graph rational functions. Unlike other functions, the graph of rational functions are very unpredictable. It includes a lot of curves. That is why we're going to discuss first some of the characteristics of a rational function. And this includes the domain, the intercepts, and the asymptotes. For the domain, these are all the possible values of x coordinate. So upon looking at our graph on the right, so we see that the graph extends to negative and positive infinity, except it does not reach -1. For the y-intercepts, these are points where the graph intersect at y-axis. So the y-axis is the vertical line, and the graph intersects at 0, -1. When we say x-intercept, these are the points where the graph intersect at x-axis. So looking at the horizontal line, the x-axis, the graph intersect at 1, 0. So these are the intercepts of our rational function. When we talk about the asymptote, these are one of the characteristic or one of the behavior of the graph of rational function, where values, when it tends to increase to negative and positive value, both on the x coordinate and y coordinate, it approaches a certain value, no, but will never be equal to that value. So later we will know why it cannot be equal to those values. For the vertical asymptote, so we see here a broken vertical line. So this is our vertical asymptote. So this is a line, x equals a. For this example, this is x equals -1, where the graph tends towards positive or negative infinity as the input approaches the -1. So you see, as the graph approaches the -1, it reaches positive and negative infinity. For the horizontal asymptote, you see this broken line. This is our horizontal asymptote. So you use y equals 1 for this example. So you draw a horizontal line on that y values where the graph approaches the line as the input approaches positive infinity or negative infinity. Yeah. So how do we get, or how do we identify these characteristics of the graph of rational function using the given function itself, so that we can sketch or we can assume the graph of a rational function? Let's have our first example. For example number 1, we have f of x equals x minus 1 over x plus 1. To find the domain, you have to do the following steps. To find other characteristic, we have to do the following steps. It's already illustrated in this slide, and you can see also the template answers, no, which you can follow. For the domain, set the denominator equal to 0 to solve for the restricted value of the domain. So it is said that you have to set the denominator equal to 0. Yan. Kasi, we have to find what makes this denominator equal to 0, and that's actually -1. So we are going to say that this -1 is the restricted value of the domain because, or dahil, ginagawa nitong 0 ang ating denominator. We all know that when a denominator is equal to 0, the solution become extraneous. That's why we say that the x is element of real numbers such that x is not equal to -1. So it only says that we can have all other values of x's except for -1. Again, because it makes the denominator equal to 0. For the y-intercept, we have to solve the rational function when x is equal to 0. So we have to transform this one to rational equation. So we have y equals, and then we just change f of x to y, and then we have to substitute 0 to each of the x's. So 0 minus 1 over 0 plus 1. And we'll have y equals to -1. So the ordered pair for our y-intercept is 0, as we substituted, and -1, the computed value. For the x-intercept, we have to set the numerator equal to 0. So we have x minus 1 equals 0. So x equals positive 1. So the computed value x is 1 and the substituted value 0 for y. That's our x-intercept. For the vertical asymptote, the only clue is to identify the restricted value computed in our first step or in the domain. So that's actually x equals negative 1. That's how simply you can solve for vertical asymptote. And for horizontal asymptote, the clue is by just determining the degree of the numerator and the denominator. It means, titingnan lang natin yung pinakamataas na exponent ni variable x. Okay? At i-compare natin sila. For the numerator, our degree is positive 1. And for the denominator, the degree is also positive 1. You observe that it's equal. No? So we will follow the third rule. So when the numerator is equal to the denominator in terms of degree, we have to solve for y equals a over b. When you say a over b, these are the numerical coefficient yung pinagkuhanan natin ng degree or the leading term. 1 over 1. So, this is equal to 1. So, we have y equals 1. So, ito yung ating mga computed properties of the rational function. F of x equals x minus 1 over x plus 1. Now, what we're gonna do is we'll try to illustrate these computed values on the Cartesian plane. So we start with the vertical asymptote, with the asymptotes. First, the vertical asymptote. So at x equals 1, we have to look at the x-axis, and at x equals 1, we have to draw a vertical line. Rather, at x equals negative 1. I'm looking at different value. So this is x equals negative 1, so we look at x equals negative 1. And then we have the point there. And we have to draw there a vertical line. Next, we have to go now with the horizontal asymptote, y equals 1. So we have to look at y-axis and at y equals positive 1. And we have to draw a horizontal line from that value. So you can see that we have already the asymptotes. Once again, when you say asymptotes, the graph should not intersect or should not pass through these lines, the vertical and horizontal asymptotes. Now let's plot the intercepts. So we have 0, negative 1. That's 0, negative 1. It's here. And our 1, 0, that is over here. If you see, there is no asymptotes in between these points, so we can connect them. And since we have two asymptotes, so we have to show that the line is getting closer to this asymptote, but it will never intersect. That's the sense of an asymptote. So we're done now plotting the four parts. So the purpose of the domain is to check whether we are showing the domain on the graph after plotting the intercepts and the asymptote. It says here that the domain is set of all real numbers except negative 1. If you see, our graph is extending to positive infinity, but we don't have a graph showing negative infinity. So meaning we have missing graphs. So we have filled the right side of the vertical asymptote pero hindi pa natin nalalagyan ng graph yung sa left side. So we have to decide where is the graph in these two area. So it could be here or pwede din siyang dito. So how are we going to identify kung alin sa dalawa yung ating magiging graph? Of course, we cannot just simply guess. So ang gagawin natin dito, we have to get an x value on that area. So the minimum possible value is x equals negative 2. And we will try what is the y coordinate if we have the x coordinate x equals negative 2 by substituting into the given function. So we have y equals negative 2 minus 1 over negative 2 plus 1. So we have negative 3 over negative 1. So we have y equals positive 3. So the ordered pair is negative 2, 3. So we have to plot negative 2, 3. So we can see that the point is above the horizontal line. So therefore, we can simply draw or sketch a graph over there. So we have to show the property of asymptote. Yan. That it just go closer to the asymptotes or to the vertical and horizontal asymptote, but it will never be equal to that value. So here we are. So we have now the graph of rational function. F of x equals x minus 1 over x plus 1. Let's now proceed to our second example. Ang mahalaga dyan, makikita natin na the graph is extending to negative infinity and positive infinity. Example number 2, f of x is equal to x squared minus 3x minus 10 all over x. For the domain, you have to just set the denominator x equal to 0. So we don't have to compute anymore kasi it's already there. Wala naman tayong value pa na pwedeng i-transpose or whatever. So we have now x is an element of real number such that x should not be equal to 0. Paumanhin sa aking brace. Yan. So for the y-intercept, we have to solve for the rational function when x is equal to 0. So y is equal to 0 squared minus 3 times 0 minus 10 all over 0. You see that the denominator is equal to 0. So whatever the numerator is, this will still be extraneous because the denominator is equal to 0. Therefore, we have no y-intercept. Okay? That's how easy it should be. No y-intercept if the solution shows an extraneous value. For the x-intercept, you just have to use the numerator and equate it to 0. So x squared minus 3x minus 10 equals 0. So since yan ay quadratic equation, kailangan natin siyang i-factor. So x minus 5 and then x plus 2 equals 0. So for x minus 5 equals 0, we have x equals positive 5. And then for x plus 2 equals 0, we have x equals negative 2. So it shows two possible values of x's. Therefore, we have two x-intercepts. We have 5, 0, and negative 2, 0. For the vertical asymptote, the restricted value, again for the domain, is x equals 0. For the horizontal asymptote, we just look at the degree. The numerator is equal to 2. Second degree. The denominator is raised to 1. So the numerator is greater than the denominator. So we have this no horizontal asymptote. So let's try to graph the horizontal asymptotes. It says that there is no horizontal asymptote, so we will not draw a horizontal line. And for the vertical asymptote, we have to set it at x equals 0. So we have here a vertical asymptote. Yan. For our x-intercept, so we have x equals 5. So that is 5, 0. This one. 5, 0. And we have negative 2, 0. And then for our y-intercept, it's extraneous. There's no y-intercept. Obviously, that is because our vertical asymptote is at x equals 0. Therefore, wala talaga tayong makukuhang y-intercept because the y-axis is the asymptote itself. So, wala siyang y-intercept. Now, we're done with the 4 parts. Now, we don't have graph yet. We cannot connect the two given intercepts since there is an asymptote in between them. So we have to assume, no? We have to imagine that there are only two ways to have these points, no? So pwede na tong point natin sa right ay papunta sa baba. Yan, pwedeng ba ganyan? Or the other way, pwede siyang pataas. There's no other way for this graph to look like. It's either of the two. Kasi we have an asymptote. And the graph should approach the asymptote. So it's either going down to the negative infinity or going up the positive infinity. As well as on the right, on the left side. So pwedeng paganyan or paganito. So, yun yung mga possible na pwedeng mangyari. But, we cannot just guess. Hindi naman tayo pwedeng manghula. So again, what will we do kapag wala tayong makuhang point? So, ang gagawin lang naman natin is we will try to solve for another point. No? On the right side, we start first here on the right side. Let's get x equals positive 1. And let's try to solve for the y so that we can have, para magkaroon tayo ng ordered pair na pwede natin pagkonektan dito sa ating x-intercept. So if x is equal to positive 1, we have 1 square minus 3 times 1 minus 10 all over 1. So we have y equals to 1 minus 3 minus 10 all over 1. That is y equals to 1 minus 3 is negative 2 minus 10. That's negative 12 over 1. Meaning to say, y is equal to negative 12. So if our y is equal to negative 12, so we have the ordered pair x, which is 1, and the y, which is negative 12. So 1 negative 12. It's down here, no? It's down there. So medyo ano pa yung graph na yung yung ating Cartesian plane kinulang. So yan. So we have this type of graph on the right side. On the left side, we can use x equals negative 1. Let's erase this one. So, ganun lang tayo pag nag-graph. Kapag wala tayong mabuo, wala tayong mapag-connect na points to come up with the curve, kailangan lang natin maghanap pa ng isang point. And we can use the x-coordinate na mababa yung value, kung saan nandun din yung graph na kailangan nating hanapan ng another point. So, sa left side, we have negative 1 up to negative infinity. Of course, pipiliin natin yung pinakamababa. So, we have negative 1 square minus 3 times negative 1 minus 10 all over negative 1. So, we have positive 1. And then, negative 3 minus, times negative 1 is positive 3 minus 10 over negative 1. So, we have 1 plus 3 is 4, minus 10 is negative 6 over negative 1. That's positive 6. So, we have the ordered pair negative 1, positive 6. Negative 1, positive 6, we have it here. Yan. So, ang gagawin lang natin ay i-connect lang natin yung dalawang yan. Again, we have to show the property of asymptote. You just have to do it. You just have to make a perfect curve as much as possible. Let's see. Our domain is, let's check. Our domain is set of all real numbers, so it should extend to the right, to the positive infinity, and extend to the negative infinity. Check. Except 0. Very good. So it split up from x equals 0. I hope your things are getting clearer. Nagiging malinaw yung mga steps natin kung paano mag-sketch ng graph. Let's have example number 3. x squared minus x minus 6 all over x squared minus 6x plus 8. For the domain, copy the denominator, x squared minus 6x plus 8, and then set it to 0, then solve for x. So, quadratic equation ulit to, mag-factor tayo. So, x minus 2, and then x minus 4 equals 0. Parang parehas silang pwedeng i-factor, no? Try natin, baka pwede natin silang i-simplify, baka may parehas na factor. This is x minus 3, this is x plus 2. And then, the denominator is x minus 2, then x minus 4. Wala. Kasi if ever na meron dyan parehas na factor, pwede natin siya i-simplify para mas maging madali yung ating graph. So, dahil wala, tuloy natin itong domain. X minus 2 equals 0, x equals positive 2. X minus 4 equals 0, x equals positive 4. So, we have two restricted values for the domain. So, we have x is an element of real number such that x is not equal to 2 as well as not equal to 4. Okay? For the y-intercept, x is equal to 0. So, y is equal to 0 squared minus 0 minus 6 all over 0 squared minus 6 times 0 plus 8. So this one is 0, 0, 0, 0. So we have negative 6 over 8. So our y is equal to negative 3/4. So the ordered pair for the y-intercept is 0 and negative 3/4. Okay? For the x-intercept, numerator naman tayo, kunin na natin yung factor form, x minus 3, x plus 2. Maganda din kapag na-factor form natin yung given rational function kasi mas madaling mag-solve ng zeros. No? Hindi ka mag-iisip while computing for the x-intercept. Kung ano yung mga factors. So maganda na-express na siya into factor form. So x minus 3 equals 0, x equals 3, then x plus 2 equals 0, x equals negative 2. So we have two x-intercepts. We have 3, 0, and negative 2, 0. Vertical asymptote, kopyahin lang natin itong na-solve natin. X equals 2 sa domain. So, we have 2. For the horizontal asymptote, the degree of the numerator is 2, the degree of denominator is 2. So, equal. So, we still have to solve for numerical coefficient of the leading term sa numerator, which is 1. Tapos yung 1 din dito, divide lang natin, y equals 1. Okay, so napakadali lang nung vertical asymptote and horizontal asymptotes, no? Now, let's try graphing them. For the asymptotes, so we have the horizontal asymptote, y equals 1. Mahalaga yan ha, kaya yan y equals 1 sa y-axis kayo titingin. Y equals 1. Tapos, ang pangalan niya ay horizontal asymptote. Gagawa kayo ng horizontal line dyan. Okay. Dun sa x naman, sa vertical asymptote, nakalagay dyan, x equals 2. So, titingin kayo sa x-axis equal to, gagawa kayo ng vertical line dyan. Ganon din dun sa pangalawa, x equals 4. So, gagawa ulit kayo ng vertical line dyan. Hindi kayo malilito kung anong line ang drawing nyo kasi nandun na siya sa pangalan niya, kung vertical or horizontal. Saan nyo hahanapin yung value? Nakalagay na din kung x or y. Okay? So, if you can see, tatlo yung division ng graph natin. We have the right, the left, at meron tayong middle kasi dalawa yung ating vertical asymptote. So, let's try now graphing the intercepts. So, we have the intercepts 3, 0 and negative 2, 0. Here's our 3, 0, and here's our negative 2, 0. Now, for the y-intercept, we have 0, negative 3/4. So, dito siya. Near to 1. That's 0.75. Negative 0.75. So, nakita natin na dito sa left side natin, we have 2 points that we can connect already. No, ang gagawin lang natin ay connect lang natin silang maayos. And then, we consider the asymptotes, okay? Yan. Papalapit yung graph sa asymptote pero hindi sila magmi-meet. Yan ang ating property ng asymptote. Now, yun lang ang pwede nating ma-drawing. We still have two graphs to accomplish. The middle at saka yung sa sa right side. Sa right side, dalawa lang naman yung possible. It's either pag ganito siya or pag ganyan siya. So, kailangan lang natin mag-test. No? Kailangan lang natin mag-test ng value. So, burahin natin yung ating tinry. Kailangan lang natin mag-test ng value. So, for this one, we can use x equals 5 kasi nandiyan siya sa may right side. So, we can compute for x equals 5. So, we can use the factored form. Pwede din naman yung hindi factored form. Kayo nang bahala. So, y equals to 5 minus 3 times 5 plus 2 all over 5 minus 2 times 5 minus 4. So, we have 2 times 7 over 3 times 1. So, we have 14 over 3, which is equivalent to, what will this be? This is 4.67. So, we have ordered pair, x equals 5, and we have 4.67. So, let's graph that point. 5, 4.65, 67. So, here. So, meaning to say, nasa taas yung graph natin. So, again, property ng asymptote. Ipakita natin yan. Ganun din dito. Yeah. So, kailangan meron kayong arrow na malapit yan sa mga asymptotes. Now, here is another thing that you have to learn about asymptotes. Most especially the horizontal asymptotes. Now, sinasabi natin that the asymptotes should not intersect the graph if they are going to infinities. No? So, you see, sa horizontal line natin, no, itong horizontal asymptote natin, nakapunta na to ng positive infinity, itong graph na to, ito ay negative infinity. It's successfully done. No, therefore, yung middle graph natin, it can cross already kasi hindi naman siya going positive and negative infinity when it comes to the x values. So, maraming possible graph na pwedeng mangyari dyan. Either parabolic, no? Either pababa siya, or pataas. Or either, pwede din naman na ang mangyari is like pwede din naman na maging ganito yung itsura niya following the vertical asymptote or the other way. So, either of the two. So, ang gagawin natin, kailangan natin kumuha ng at least 2 points. No, nawala yung ating vertical asymptote. So, kasi dahil 3 na yan, tapos 2 and 4 na yung kasunod, probably magde-decimal tayo. No? Kasi, wala nang ibang value na integer. Kaya magde-decimal tayo. So, ready your calculator. So, we will solve first for dun sa between 2 and 3. That's 2.5. So, for x equals 2.5. So, we have to have y equals 2.5 minus 3. Then our x will be there. Our x is 2.5, no? 2.5 plus 2 all over 2.5 minus 2, 2.5 minus 4. So, 2.5 minus 3 is negative 0.5. And then, 2.5 plus 2 is 4.5. So, we now have here 2.5 minus 2 is 0.5. And then, 2.5 minus 4 is 1.5. So, kung i-multiply natin itong 0.5 by 4.5, that's 2.25. That's negative 2.25. All over 0.5 times 1.5, that's 0.75. So, we have here negative 2.25, negative 2.25 divide 0.75, that's 3. So this is y equals negative 3. So ang ating ordered pair for x equals 2.5 is y negative 3. Ang ordered pair natin dyan ay 2.5 negative 3. No, 2.5 negative 3. So 2.5 then negative 3. So here we have. Tingnan natin mabuti yung ating graph. Dami ng naging points. Kasi yung kamay ko gusto ko siyang i-zoom. So, eto, i-connect natin siya dyan. So, meron na tayo ditong asymptote. Ang next problem natin is yung susunod na value. Yung kung tataas ba siya or bababa siya. So, solve naman natin yung 3.5. X equals 3.5. So, y equals to 3.5 minus 3, 3.5 plus 2, all over 3.5 minus 2, and then 3.5 minus 4. So, 3.5 minus 3 is actually 0.5, and then 3.5 plus 2 is 5.5. All over 3.5 minus 2 is 1.5, then 3.5 minus 4 is negative 0.5. So 0.5 times 5.5 is actually 2.75, and then 1.5 times negative 0.5 is negative 0.75. So di-divide lang natin yan. 2.75 divide 0.75, 3.67, negative. So, for x equal 3.5, ang ating y value is negative 3.67. So, graph natin yan. 3.5, 3 point, negative 3 point, negative 3.67. Ito siya. Ayan. So, pababa siya. So, ay, parabola siya, opens downward. So, in this graph, hindi siya nag-cross talaga kasi nagkataon na yung middle natin na graph ay parabola that opens downward. Pero possible na yan na umakyat ha. Kapag possible yan na mag-crossover sa ating horizontal asymptote. Since na-meet na nito yung definition niya that as the graph approaches positive and negative infinity. So, yung nasa gitna natin, pwede na siyang mag-cross. We're now down to our last example. Example number 4. So, we have f of x equals x squared minus 3x minus 4 all over x squared minus 4x minus 5. Try muna natin siya i-factor. Baka meron tayong makuhang simplified form. This is x minus 4, then x plus 1. All over, this is x minus 5 over x plus 1. See? We can cancel the x plus 1 now. So, our simplified rational function will be x minus 4 over x minus 5. It is not simple as this na kapag na-simplify na natin siya, ay walang mangyayari sa magiging graph. Of course, there will something that happens to our graph. I will explain that on the last part of this given. So ngayon, mag-focus muna tayo kung paano natin ito i-graph itong simplified function na to. So for the domain, the denominator is equal to 0. So we just solve that. So x is an element of real number such that x is not equal to positive 5. For the y-intercept, we just let x equal to 0. So y is equal to 0 minus 4 over 0 minus 5, which is equal to positive 4 over 5. So our y-intercept is 0, 4 over 5. For the x-intercept, we just use the numerator equal to 0, x equals 4. So we have 4, 0 for the x-intercept. For the vertical asymptote, ano yung na-compute natin sa domain? Yun lang yung gagamitin natin. For the horizontal asymptote, degree is 1, degree is 1, so equal lang siya. Doon ulit tayo sa pangatlo. We have 1 over 1. That's the numerator and denominator. So we have y equals 1. Ngayon, i-graph muna natin siya. Yung apat na yan. No? Titingnan muna natin siya sa graph natin. For our asymptotes, we have at y equals positive 1. So, yan, gagawa tayo ng horizontal line dyan. And then, for our vertical asymptote, x equals 5. And then, our x-intercept is 4, 0. Ang ating y-intercept is 0, 4/5. Or it's just a 0.80. Palitan natin ng color. So, ito yung ating y-intercept and x-intercept. So, kailangan lang natin siyang i-drawing ng yan. Kitang-kita na hindi siya nag-intersect. Ayan. Ayan. Very crucial ang paggawa ng curve, no? Pag rational function. Ayan. And then next, so wala tayong nakuhang graph sa kabila. So we will try to solve for x equals 6. Hanapin natin siya. So y equal to 6 minus 4 over 6 minus 5. So we have y equals 2 over 1, which is y equals 2. So, ang ordered pair natin ay 6, positive 2. So, nasa anong 6, positive 2? Nasa taas siya. Yan. So, most probably, ang ating graph ay andyan sa taas. Kailangan lang natin sundin yung mga asymptotic part. So, we have now the graph. Now, we're almost done, but as what I said earlier, meron tayong kinancel na factor. And that factor was x plus 1. Ang gagawin lang natin, no, is we have to solve kung ano yung point na na-cancel natin. So, for x plus 1, burahin natin yung part na yan. Tandaan natin na x plus 1 yung ating kinancel. Okay. So, what is the 0 of that factor na na-cancel natin? That's x equals to negative 1. And then, we substitute this value to our simplified form, y equals negative 1 minus 4 over negative 1 minus 5. This is negative 5 over negative 6. And that is equal to 5 over 6. So, at point, meron tayong makukuha point, negative 1. No? So, at point negative 1, 5 over 6, we have this what we called whole of the graph. Ibig sabihin, dun sa negative 1, kailangan natin gumawa ng whole dun sa graph na dinaanan niya. Ayan. Ano lang natin. Negative 1. Gawa tayo ng whole dyan. Pero bago tayo makagawa ng whole, ayan. So, negative 1. Ayan. 5 over 6. Almost near na siya sa, sa positive 1 eh. Ayan. So, dadaan yung graph dyan, pero hindi siya mag-i-equal dyan. Okay? So, ayan. Kailangan natin gumamit ng whole. Ito yung ating whole, which is negative 1, 5 over 6. May ganyang property. May ganyang property ang rational function kapag nakakapag-simplify tayo. So, I hope you're ready to have our face-to-face activity on sketching the graph of rational function. Sana marami kayo natutunan, especially yung mga characteristic na yan, the domain, the intercepts, and the asymptotes, and how are we going to find the graph of a rational function by sketching these properties sa ating Cartesian plane. Lagi nyo lang tatandaan, na um, kapag naubos na lahat yung mga characteristics ng intercept at asymptote, wala pa rin nabubuong graph, magka-try kayo ng mga values dun sa part ng mga graphs natin na kailangan nyo pa ng graph. Okay? So, I hope this one is clear. Goodbye, everyone!